quietly pull a failing student out of the sudden academic doldrums, altering the intellectual flop into a glittering student of American literature. Catcher in the Rye? Ask them. Synopsis, Flowers from Algernon? Just ask. Themes, The Grapes of Wrath? Done. Hello, I'm Tim, and my hero was a movie star who is likely unknown to most of you.
Resolute in their trajectory, willing to operate in a constant state of flux, always imagine success even while thrashing through the throes of failure, open to epiphany and attuned to every frequency in the universe on a moment's notice. Hi, I'm Jesse, and my heroes are the stuff of rock and roll legend.
Vulnerable but never weak, strong but never domineering. I'm Dave, and my Shero gives new meaning to feminism.
Nothing is normal, nothing like anybody else. Hi, I'm Albert, and in this political climate, my heroes grow every day.
Such fierceness, so fearless, focusing on a future fighter made of lightness. I'm Mason. Hi. My hero is someone you might not know, so listen up.
Towers above, tall, sleek, hair flows, a black mane streaked in pink, sprouting from armpits, legs, crotch. Good evening. I'm Sherry, and I swear to you, she sprouts wings and flies from place to place.
Then there are the unsung heroes who work diligently behind the scenes, often in shadows. This is where one of my secret heroes remains in my heart to this day. Hi, my name is Joe, and my hero is in my blood.
Sheroes and heroes abound, fighting the good fight. When the need arises, Sheroes show up at marches in LA, Washington, D.C. The women who fought for so long for our rights and now have to fight to keep them. Gay, straight, trans, nameless people are on the front lines every day. Good evening. I'm Christine, and my Shero is in my blood.
Compassionate, brave, decisive, determined, altruistic, inspirational, and selfless. Welcome. My name is Roland, and my hero is my dad.
Heroes are those who not only mentor, but anticipate needed guidance and execute it in a generous and non-judgmental way. The hero takes caution to not indulge self-serving or unrealistic ideals. A hero offers ideas and alternatives for a successful outcome. It's a delicate balance of give and take, tolerance versus discipline, and tough love. My hero may not be exclusively mine. Often heroes must be shared. They have the best interests of others, sometimes in great numbers, at heart, yet somehow can touch us as individuals. Harvey Milk, Sojourner Truth, Abraham Lincoln, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, Harold Washington, Mother Teresa, Bono. The list is endless. They changed millions of lives for the better. Social or economic status didn't matter. Their very being, their lives, had a profound, positive, and lasting effect on millions. Who are your heroes and sheroes?
My childhood was in turmoil, not the happy home everyone wants, everyone imagines. When love slips away, emptiness is left in its wake. With her guitar, her flowing black hair, her rough, tremulous voice, my sister Nancy rescued me. She took me under her wing, sang of the upset and anger of a generation, of her own sadness and anguish. Her warmth and love gave me what my mother didn't really have time for, teaching me, bringing me out into the sunlight. She moved to the city, as it was called, not San Francisco, not Frisco, but the city. She lived with her boyfriend, Jens. Foreigner, jewelry maker, heavy accent. He was so exotic. I was only 10 or 12, but I was so grown up. Nancy was 11 years older than I. She had studied anthropology at Berkeley. The days of People's Park and free speech, student uprisings, fighting injustice. And her guitar was always by her side, creating the perfect blend of art and politics. This was my truth, my sister Nancy.
A Shero. A Shero is someone who does something extraordinary for those they deeply care about. It could be moving to another faraway country, just like my mother did when she moved to the U.S. by herself, so she can scout a better future for us, her children. She left her husband, her mother, her siblings, her social status, friends of decades and many from childhood. She left everything she knew and everyone who knew her, including us, her own children. A hero. A hero is someone who fights for an ideal that transforms the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. It is someone who fights the unbeatable foe, just like my father did when he went underground to fight an unjust government, a government whose primary job was to defend those who have the most against those who have the least. Sheroes and heroes have a vision that transcends, like my parents did, regardless of the risk, for they care more for the lives of others. They are compassionate, brave, decisive, determined, altruistic, inspirational, selfless, noble, and empathetic, smart, and they care more about what they must do and not worry too much about the consequences.
1971, Weeblo Cub Scouts annual Pinewood Derby. Each boy was issued a block of wood with minimal instructions and no tools from which to carve a suitable mini version of a race car. Wheels and axles were provided. Ideally, there would be a dad on hand to mentor the process. The design, as well as the bulk of the construction, would be done by me, the 9-year-old Weeblo Scout. My brother Jim, the man of the house, even though he was only 14 at the time, helped me build my racer. Racing day. My whole family attended. Time trials. I placed my car at the top of the ramp, and I let it go. To my horror, the car moved down about 6 inches and stopped just beyond the crest of the slope. The judges inspected my car. It was over weight limits. Quickly, they chiseled and gouged wood from the undercarriage to decrease the weight. When this didn't work, upon further inspection, they discovered that the axles had been attached incorrectly and the wheels would not turn. I was disqualified and mortified. There I stood, a big dumb grin on my face to disguise the pullulating tears of humiliation flowing all the way to my toes. I heard murmurings from the crowd. Poor kid doesn't have a dad to help him. Oh, it's a nice looking racer. Too bad, though. I wanted to melt into the floor. That's when Jim walked over to me, where I stood, alone, wilting in the spotlight of shame. He simply said to me, "Don't be embarrassed." He stood right there next to me, where we shared that spotlight, tall and proud. Then he walked me away from the racetrack to join the rest of my family, and we watched the big race. A minor victory, perhaps, but no less important. Thanks to my brother Jim, my hero, he taught me the values of family, brotherly love, and standing by a commitment regardless of your shortcomings. After 46 years, I still haven't told Jim. Would I be Jim's hero if I told him today?
What happens when a hero falls from the pedestal to the dusty earth below, and you realize your hero, your Shero, is only human like everyone else? Nancy and Jens broke up. She had other boyfriends, but no one treated her like the goddess I thought she was. Alcohol, drugs, a parade of dead-end jobs, and she put the guitar away. She married Don, blonde, charming, abusive. No more singing, no more joy in fighting the demons, righting the wrongs of society. Her life was about survival, how to get to work in the morning, hungover, bruised from a fucked up husband. The sadness in her eyes told the story. Eventually, though, she got away from him, escaped the deadly path, went back to her childhood home, back to the womb, back to the home of the father who loved her best. And she grew stronger. She found new joy, new purpose in motherhood. She didn't play the guitar anymore, but she forged a life worth living. Gone now, her life lives on in her son. He has her eyes and her smile. And what about me? Who do I look up to now? I lost my Shero, my false prophet who showed me how to live life well, how to forge a path through the underbrush to bask in the sunlight of righteousness. My sister was my Shero, rescuing me when I needed it, showing me a path, and she still is.
No longer on a pedestal, but a real human who lives in my memories with flaws. It was Nancy who handed me the keys to unlock my world.
My father, Guillermo Alfonso Palencia Badilla, was not for the longest time a hero to me. By the time I turned 10, he had practically abandoned the family, leaving my mother, Vilma Duarte de Palencia, almost 5 kids, and a thriving bakery business behind. A very handsome and charismatic leader, he embodied the optimism of the booming Caribbean town of Puerto Barrios, the largest port in Guatemala, between Belize and Honduras, and was Guatemala's premier window to the rest of the world. My dad had a magnetic personality, a beating heart overflowing with compassion. He devoured books, giving him a refined intellect, further sharpened by a formal university education and by decades of passionate engagement with people from all walks of life. In the mid-1960s, my dad joined El Ejército Guerrillero de los Pobres, the Poor People's Army, an underground guerrilla group made up of mostly indigenous peasants. His ideology exiled him from the hot and humid Caribbean to the Altiplanos, the highlands of Guatemala, where most people speak 1,000-year native Mayan languages and dress in warm clothing, as temperatures hover around 0 Fahrenheit. His mission and that of his comrades was to unleash a guerrilla warfare against the ruthless Guatemalan oligarchy, a government of the few, for the few, by the few, and because of the few and nothing else, but the very few. Ironically, his uncle, Julio Cesar Mendez Montenegro, was the president of Guatemala when my dad began his underground activities. Although his tío, Mendez Montenegro, promised democratic reforms and the eradication of corruption, the promises went unfulfilled. The young and the radicalized became restless with the empty promises, resulting in an explosive civil war that eventually claimed over 200,000 lives. All this against the background of the volatile U.S.-Soviet Union Cold War, which added fuel and paranoia to the raging fires of violent revolutions and counter-revolutions. Because of his activities, my dad was labeled a communist. And I blame him for playing with fire. But a communist? As a kid, I did not understand exactly what a communist is, but I know it's not good. It makes me ashamed and fearful at the same time. It is the same gut-wrenching feeling that I have when I hear the word maricón. It's thrown around when it's thrown around by neighborhood kids, my classmates, our male employees, and even some of my relatives. Either label can get you in trouble. How could my dad be a hero to so many and also be a communist, which was then considered the lowest of the law? So I start to get a feeling that a label can get you killed and that words have power. In 1970, at the age of 12 and a half, I moved from Puerto Barrios to Guatemala City. My mom had already migrated for the U.S., and we had already lost the business that employed over 24 people. We lost the comforts, the dignity, and the privilege attached to a certain social status. For the next 5 years, we would live in other people's homes under the tutelage of paternal and maternal grandparents. In August of 1971, my dad was assassinated in broad daylight in one of the busiest boulevards in Guatemala City, a city of over 2 million at that time. And so I ask, do people have to die to become sheroes or heroes? All I know is that I deeply miss my dad, my personal hero.
My senses were first gloriously assaulted by the Beatles via their debut U.S. TV performance, February 9th, 1964. She loves you, bark, bark, bark. They sounded fucking great, and they were gorgeous. Well, okay, Ringo. But still, here on national television on the fucking Ed Sullivan Show, amongst racist, sexist, talking puppets and comedians, the cast of Oliver, a magician and an acrobat, appeared four long-haired, singing, gyrating, androgynous men, spiking my 6-year-old brain with a vast array of orgasmic, proto-psychedelic technicolor hues, despite the broadcast being in black and white. I saw the Beatles and I thought to myself, so boys can be girls. My mind warping into a new Panavision view of myself and the world around me. Who the hell needed school, religion, sports, serving in the armed forces, breeding, babies, or a fucking career? I had seen the new gods, and they were human like me, wielding the instruments of our destruction, guitars that spat out electrical currents, drums that exploded like atomic bombs, and voices like angels. No more military crew cuts, no more playing with toy guns. With my Gibson hollow body guitar in hand in all its curvaceous wooden and metal glory, it even came with its own G-string. I could thrash out luxuriant chords, wail like a banshee, and shake my sexy ass for the entire world to see. If the soul is indeed rubber, that means it's fluid, malleable. It can be bent and twisted into new transformational configurations. Everything was not as it seemed. I was a girl, not a boy. And while there was virtually nothing tangible to confirm my fluctuating reality, it felt real enough to me, and despite the binding, corseted dictates of society and my own flailing, uncooperative body, there was now truly no turning back. I had no idea just how many years I'd struggled to become myself, to come out as bisexual, to transition from male to female, but back then, I had no reason to believe I would ever make it at all. So better fucking late than never.
Whistleblower. Those are my heroes. Whistleblower, a noun, a person who makes public disclosure of corruption or wrongdoing. There are many people out there risking their lives blowing the whistle on officials and those in authority who are practicing devious, nefarious methods in their jobs and areas of influence for illicit gain and or control over a gullible and unsuspecting public. Such hidden practices destroy the proper maintenance and security of the social infrastructure in the name of private and or corporate interests in order to deceive the body politic and assure ascendance of an elite few who have wrested control over financial and governing coalitions to the detriment of the civic community at large. Such nefarious and hidden influences have, of course, been around for hundreds of years throughout history. But the time has now come, given the easy access of information through the internet and other social media conglomerates, to make available a forum for disclosure of covert dark operations to the light of public knowledge and awareness. And I applaud such an availability of information and approve wholeheartedly those brave enough to disseminate questionable and disreputable enterprises which harm the many for the benefit of a few. Society as a whole needs to pay attention to these whistleblowers and check out the information with an open mind and a judicial inquisition. There are controllers in high positions of authority which attempts to diminish the equality of public justice. We've known this for some time, but have been unwilling to do anything about it because of the feeling of helplessness due to a lack of complicity among compatriots, and the illusion of power by those who own the store. The American Republic has suffered because of this. The public has suffered, and the poor particularly. This coming to light of information puts upon us an obligation to not only assimilate that information and process it in our social awareness, but to stand with those who put themselves on the firing line so they are not fighting alone. To fight for what is right is how heroism is defined. The initial exposure is not the finished product. It is when a group of conscious individuals align themselves with the lone whistleblower to provide a protective front until a larger picture is delineated and made clear to a perceptive and informed public that exposure of corruption can be dealt with on a social level. Otherwise, we're all left in the dark and deserve those consequences. So now is the time of convergence of both information and heroism. Whistleblowing may not be good for one's health, but it is vital. And in these times, we must make use of the tools available to protect ourselves, for those weaker than us, and for the nation and world at large. If we are to evolve for the better, we must stand up for what is right and expose the darkness around us. To fear doing so is to consign humanity to the dark ages of the past. So there's a turning point now upon us. So we got to support the people who shine the light. People like Karen Silkwood, Detective Serpico, Daniel Ellsberg, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, Aaron Brockovich, Chelsea Manning.
Yes, my heroes were four pasty white, androgynous-looking, working-class dudes from a devastated northern English backwater port of call, but damn, could they rock. Their heroes were black rock and rollers and all-girl groups, beat poets, and leather-clad country boys. They had a gay Jewish manager. They refused to play for segregated audiences in the South. Their films, A Hard Day's Night and Help, were stuffed chock full of queer and camp dialogue, situations, visual sensibilities, and naughty allusions to both sexuality and gender, playing off their at times effeminate, at times asexual image. They didn't suffer fools kindly. They treated all comers equally and were never less than forthright and honest about their own faults and failings. While my own journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance was aided immeasurably by LGBTQI and queer artists and activists along the way, it truly began that magical day in 1964 when I first set eyes and ears upon the Beatles, turned off my mind, relaxed, and floated downstream. Yeah, yeah, yeah! Yeah, yeah, yeah! QueerWise celebrates, honors, mourns, and remembers our sheroes and heroes, famous or not, family or not, accomplished or not, dead or alive. We own, cherish, possess, love them. They pump us with energy, maybe GLBTQI. People rely on our sheroes and heroes in a heightened way. Who are your sheroes and heroes?
Dan White was born in Long Beach, the second of 9 children raised by Irish-American working-class parents in a Roman Catholic household. In his junior year attending Reardon High School, he was expelled for violence.
November 27th, 1978. Spinning around my bedroom, blissfully unaware of the news as Donna Summer's voice soars from my turntable. I have a head for books and music, but not the evening news. The news is a nuisance. I am unaware that Harvey Milk, a man on the opposite coast, a place where I'm longing to be at this moment, has been assassinated. I'm unaware that my secretive yearnings are the same as his. I'm unaware that he has forged a path for me to live an openly gay life where I will be, literally and figuratively, in merely 10 years from this moment.
After being honorably discharged from the United States Army, the newspapers referred to him as an all-American boy when he rescued a woman and her baby from a 7th-story apartment when he was working for the San Francisco Fire Department.
In 1977, White was elected as a Democrat to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors from District 8, which included several neighborhoods described by the New York Times as hostile to the growing homosexual community of San Francisco.
The life and times of Harvey Milk. Or is it the life and death of Harvey Milk? I can't remember now. I'm watching this documentary in my dorm room, wondering if my roommate can hear me sniffling in the dark. Queer activism is very new to me. No GSA club at Fairmont High School. The reddest county in Minnesota, the tacky buckle of the Bible Belt that stretches across the state's southern border. Also, the biggest pork-producing county in the state. Hogs everywhere.
After clashing with the members of the board, including Harvey Milk, White resigned and then sought an appointment which Milk and others objected to.
I will remain unaware until the moment arrives. While watching the life and times of Harvey Milk with my very first boyfriend, my hands grip the armrest of my couch, and I weep openly while a fury bellows from within me. I am finally aware.
On November 27, 1978, White entered City Hall by climbing through a first floor window carrying a .38 revolver and 10 rounds of ammunition.
Hogs everywhere. And here I am, crying with Harvey.
According to Wikipedia, after entering Mayor Mosconi's office, White pleaded to be reinstated as supervisor, but Mosconi refused. White then killed Mosconi by shooting him in the shoulder and chest, and twice in the head. He then walked to the other side of City Hall to Milk's office, reloaded the gun, and shot Milk 5 times. The fatal final shot, 2 shots, fired with the gun's barrel touching Milk's skull.
It was November 1978. I'm on my back on the oversized couch of my aunt's house in her living room. She is taking care of me, but maybe it was too little, too late. Cancer. It might be cancer. Surgery this week. I watched TV to pass the time. The Briggs Initiative. What? Gays couldn't be teachers? We defeated that one. All these gays jumping up and down in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. We won. We won. My aunt said sick. After the surgery, no cancer label. But I'm a different kind of man. No longer still on the couch. Dianne Feinstein, acting mayor of San Francisco, was on TV announcing, Harvey Milk is dead. Harvey Milk is dead. Harvey Milk is dead. I could not stand up or tell my aunt I am not sick. I felt not pain, but change. I'm a different kind of man now. I will be able to get off the couch. Harvey Milk is dead.
Harvey Milk is dead.
Outrage within San Francisco's gay community resulted when White received a manslaughter conviction rather than first-degree murder. The White Night riots resulted in no small part to what became known as the Twinkie defense because of White's predilection for sugar.
Harvey's bravery lay in his awareness and fearlessness in standing up for his own true nature and that of gay people everywhere, especially in the face of the threats and hostilities against living a peaceful and open existence. He was in some sense not surprised by the outcome of his involvement because he knew the stakes were greater, far greater than his own personal life. He seemed to have an inner knowledge of his precarious position and willingly accepted that the value of his life was not to be counted in how many years he lived, but in the impact of changing the lives of others for the better.
On October 21, 1985, less than 2 years after his release from prison, White committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning in his garage by running a garden hose from the exhaust pipe to the inside of his car.
And just like prophets do, and in foretelling his own fate and that of the entire LGBTQ community, Harvey Milk declared that if a bullet should enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet. I know what it's like to experience having your heroes killed by an assassin's bullet, as Harvey and my father share the same fate. Bullets can kill individuals, but they can't kill the collective thirst for justice, human freedom, and dignity. Bullets are like a dam in a river. They can put those dreams on a pause, but they can't contain the torrential force of history. Harvey knew that. He also knew that these tragedies heighten our awareness of what is at stake, and they give us clarity of why we fight for what we fight for. And it also makes us very aware of our own hero role in that evolving history.
Tireless worker, fighter, friend, and advocate, he was up earlier than usual this day. He quickly showered. He would normally have a light breakfast at home. Instead, today he'd enjoy hot tea and pastry when he got to work. He arrived at his office earlier than usual because of skipping breakfast. The day was somehow different, unusual, strangely off-kilter. Though he couldn't quite put his finger on it. It became apparent when he looked up from his desk to see a familiar figure, arm extended, fixed gaze. In that second, Harvey's fears were finally realized.
My hero slept with a gun under his pillow every night because my hero was not perfect. His voice danced into my soul like a singing tambourine as he saved his family but not himself. I liked the way he would round up animals on his farm while saving his brothers and sisters from being sent off to foster homes after the deaths of his parents. Man, he was my hero. During World War II in Europe, he was wounded and wounded and wounded, but he never gave up on his men. He kept coming back and he kept fighting hard. He was a short man, but tall to me. He alone, while covering his men, disabled 50 Germans towards the end of the war and captured one of those hills that were so vitally important back then. Alone, he fought the enemy alone, on top of that burning tank. Man, man, oh man, oh man, he was my hero. I sat in the front seat of my father's two-tone 1957 Pontiac at a local drive-in when I saw him for the first time. He was a good man, a beautiful man, a wounded man. I knew he would never walk away from me. He would never let me go hungry. I bet he would make me feel proud of who I am. Man, he was my hero. Most boys know how to not act like girls. Most boys don't know how to grow into men. I was scared to be a man, because becoming a man was an option. I bet my hero would have helped me climb that cyclone fence. He would have pushed me over the top and helped me run away to another town where I could be a hero just like him. He drank a lot. He wasn't happy. He died in a plane crash, and he did sleep with that gun. Still, he touched me and showed me that even if you don't have an option, you can be proud of who you are. My hero, Audie Murphy.
Sheroes and heroes, feminine, fluid, masculine, malleable, the friends, loners, champions, freaks, lover of all.
Erudite, precise, little patience with vagueness, says what he means what he says.
Disarming haters with unparalleled intellectual armament. Full strength, through the gates, in your face, then behind it, obliterating blindness, demanding you wake.
Overcome their faults, open the vault, correct spelling, punctuation, road to high self-esteem. They believe in you, them, the underpaid, the underappreciated, the mocked. Improve their ability to compose a paragraph, explain how to use a semicolon. Write, learn, understand.
Philanthropist, ventriloquist, dentist, biologist, gynecologist, therapist.
Gaudy, garish, defy convention, drink from multicolored bottles on ancient dusty shelves, shape-shift through gender, through ravages of space and time, face each new horizon with a gleaming smile that wraps around all consciousness.
She will not be bound by fashion codes that infantilize.
No posers need apply.
2015 was my last year celebrating Twin Cities Pride in Minneapolis before moving to Los Angeles. And my favorite part of the festival is the Pride Parade. The weather for the parade is always perfect. Sun out to play with sequin-sheathed drag queens, a breeze keeping rainbow flags dancing, and hot enough to wear as little as possible. 2015 was no different. The parade pierces the heart of downtown Minneapolis, down the busiest street in the city. It's important to note the parade, the most visible event in Minneapolis for the LGBTQ community, happens on center stage. Jerry and Heidi had been my Pride buddies since my first Pride parade in 2009, and we were determined to go all out for our final Pride together. We didn't bounce back from a night of drunken dancing quite as well as we used to, but we had the tools to fight off our hangovers. Breakfast sandwiches and a super soaker filled with vodka cranberries. The first trans poet woman to be awarded the honor, the Grand Marshal of the parade that year, was Andrea Jenkins, poet, activist, and playwright. I had seen her before at events and shows, but knew little about her. And that day at the parade, Andrea Jenkins became my hero. The parade is just getting started, and already we've put a major dent in our boozy ammunition. My tank top, shredded to pieces and put back together with colorful leather straps, sticks to glittered, sweaty skin. We hoot and shriek as a float full of go-go boys bumps past, bulges bouncing in time with the club music blaring from the speakers. The roar of 50-strong dykes on bikes shakes the street. I can feel them in my sternum. This parade is all energy, pure ecstasy, and I am lost in it. The Grand Marshal comes toward the end of the parade, and Andrea Jenkins does more than smile and wave to the cheering crowds lining the route. Her car is surrounded by protesters, mostly young people, waving signs and chanting Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter. Andrea Jenkins' voice rings out over all the others. She trades in the waving and the smiles for a bullhorn. Her car comes to a stop in front of the parade grandstand, and she leaps from her throne and calls a signal to her entourage. Signs drop, and bodies lay down in the street. Andrea calls for silence, and the world listens. Silence for Michael Brown, for Sandra Bland, for Poppy Edwards, for London Kiki Chanel, for the black and trans bodies that find stillness too soon and too often. Andrea Jenkins does not rely on her visibility. She seizes her opportunity to demand attention and action in fighting for the rights of her communities. I am shocked by the disruption, by the power of true pride wielded to fight like hell for what is right. In her poem, Queer Manifesto, Andrea writes, "Why are we afraid to let real love shine? To say, I'm in love with a big, black, transgender goddess, and she loves me back, so fuck you." Andrea Jenkins has kept on fighting, and today she is in the middle of campaigning for Ward 8 council member for the Minneapolis City Council. Andrea Jenkins did not come to play, and for that, she is and will always be my hero.
Gliding into the small classroom with a heavy backpack, I quickly survey the room before I sit. A gauzy burnt orange glow peeks through the blinds as the sun sets over the Hudson River. Just the right color for the first night of my college feminism course titled Goddess. Earlier in the cafeteria, my buddy Homer Snyder, clothed in a Miller Lite t-shirt and bearing a freshly shorn crew cut, shoots me a quizzical look when I tell him that I have a night class. Sociology? No. Goddess. What the fuck is that? Undeterred by his judgmental tone, I say, it's a feminism course. Silence. I fling this awkward exchange off along with my backpack as I take a seat in my goddess course next to a ginger-haired boy with a ruddy cheek complexion resembling a freshly polished apple.
Jet black from head to toe. Black shirt and jeans, leather jacket, chunky boots. Not butch, but feminine and strong. Cascade of raven-colored curls, a natural streak of white, her wisdom. Her hair, a crowning glory, a commanding aura on this goddess of a woman. Some people, some women, seem taller than they are because their presence is amplified. They command the room. All eyes turn to look. All ears attuned to listen to her wisdom, her insight. She could see things. Arlene Raven, art historian, feminist critic, lesbian, co-founder of the Women's Building, my mentor in the Feminist Studio Workshop. She was Arlene Rubin until she met Judy Chicago at Cal Arts in the early 1970s, where they founded a feminist art program. Judy said, "No, you shall be called Arlene Raven." And from that day on, she was.
There are 15 women seated around a large table and 2 men. I'm one of them. Pam Shmansky smiles and introduces herself as our professor, the head goddess. Long curls float out her back. Her Woodstock-inspired blouse is billowy and free, much like Miss Shmansky's demeanor. She and her husband Dick live in a solar-paneled house on a country road in the lush green hillsides of the Hudson Valley. The professors at this community college are all suits and spectacles. Miss Shmansky is the earth. We begin by dissecting Bible passages from a feminist perspective, and then we move on to matriarchal societies, omitted from the history books, and I unlearn oppressive language.
Witch, shapeshifter. I wouldn't have been surprised if she became winged at night, slipping out the window of her South Central Victorian, soaring over the city under a full moon. Her vision was certainly elevated, an aerial perspective on history, culture, art. She created the Lesbian Art Project and held court in her Victorian parlor. At her feet, we felt transported back to the 1920s Paris, the salon of Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas.
At the dinner table, I tell my parents it's police officer, not policeman. Firefighter, not fireman. Seemingly innocuous language takes on new meaning. Words are like chains, meant to shackle women and keep them in their place. My mom, my grandmother, my girlfriends.
In 1975, I was 21 years old. I just traveled from the Midwest to join the Feminist Studio Workshop. I took her class called Feminism 101. She made predictions. She said capitalism was so powerful that one day it would take this feminist movement of ours and sell it back to us as merchandise. It would be commodified for some corporation's benefit. Impossible, we thought. Feminism was marginalized in the public eye, even despised. Only a few years later, cigarettes were marketed to women with the slogan, "You've come a long way, baby." How had she known? How had she seen it coming? But this Amazon warrior armed me with the true weapons of resistance, critical thinking. I saw what was being sold to us, a message about our bodies. To be attractive was to be slim, Virginia slim. Our desires must be sublimated with toxic fumes that we suck into our bodies. We should choose the poison, not the tits of our mothers. Our appetites could only be satisfied by sucking on the patriarchy.
Wow.
At one class, Ms. Shmansky instructs us to write a short story and explore our burgeoning feminists within, especially the men, just me and the ginger boy. So I put pen to paper, and in a feverish burst of creativity, I fiercely scribble a story about a woman, Miss Ruby, who tends her garden in a conventional suburb. And her garden is unlike the others. It's lush and vibrant and overflowing with morning glories and roses. Her secret ingredient for fertilizing the soil is her menstrual blood, which she keeps in a small container. I nervously pass my story to Ms. Shmansky, and while the class reads a chapter from the Miss Avalon, she silently reads our stories.
A stifling Los Angeles fall afternoon, spent lounging by the shimmering blue pool, with my large, awkward, primitive headphones clamped to my head, wearing nothing but my panties. Well, my tight boy's bikini bathing suit. A girl can dream, can't she? Listening to the dazzling new yet instantly familiar blast of sonic wizardry that was Rubber Soul, the Beatles' just released long-playing vinyl disc. Wonky, overgrown stub palm trees did their best to mimic the decadent sway of their taller, sleeker brethren, while a manic blue jay dive-bombed my ginger cat, named, unsurprisingly, Ginger. The breeze was more the gasp of a smog-billowing chimney, offering no relief from the septic sun, instead magnifying the intensity of the heat tenfold. Ain't I a woman?
A small gasp escapes her lips, and I wonder if she's reading my story. As we all prepare to leave class, Ms. Sponsky asks, "Can I speak with you, Dave?" So when the last student leaves, she whispers conspiratorially, "Did you know that I do that with my own menstrual blood?" I've never told anyone. She places a hand on my shoulder, and a sensual a wave of warmth and empathy infuses my being, and I feel a connectedness and a sense of peace. I know I'm going to be okay.
Oh.
Ain't I a woman?
Oh.
I'm going to leave this town.
She taught me the power of language, how words have been stolen from us, but how we can take them back, make them our own. Men's words meant to hurt us became our words of empowerment. We became dykes of our own dreams, who examined our cunts and embraced our queerness. We called each other girls.
Despite sweat glistening on my prepubescent torso, I remained cool, my eyes shut tight, breathing in the folksy, insistent joy of "I've just seen a face" and mystical Eastern sitar twang of Norwegian wood. The album's front cover flickered across my mindscape, a pulsating neon billboard. John, Paul, George, and Ringo's sallow, stretched, sexy faces, tweaking the program gender and sexual definitions misprinted upon my brain for the first 9 years.
One more thing she taught me in Feminism 101 was how to take my power in public. Every time I'm in front of an audience, I step into chunky boots, which elevate, cloak myself in the black of mystery, and summon strength from the raven. Ain't I a woman?
It had been 2 endless, tumultuous years that had brought me to this intersection in time. The move from vertical, shadowy New York City to the woozy, horizontal oasis that was Encino in 1965, followed by my parents' quiet but ugly divorce, struck me like a shift of dimensions. I was searching for something new, although at the time I could not have told you exactly what it was. Ain't I a woman?
Oh, wait, I have another Shero. A Shero whose eyes seared into my soul, her blackness, her otherness, so foreign to me. Hugged by her huge dress and her white shawl, she looked like any other lady of the era, but those eyes were fierce, strong, a woman not to be fucked with. On a mission, her name proclaimed to the world, "I am Sojourner Truth," on a mission of truth, of justice, of righting the wrongs of the world. Okay, I was in grammar school, a place of play, of reading, writing, arithmetic. We were taught something about slavery, but not the details. There were a few white kids and some brown peers, but I don't remember anybody black until I was in junior high school, until I met Derek. It was the 70s when LA was making an effort to encourage diversity, painting the city with a coat of many colors, an attempt to bring people together. Derek played the trumpet. I played the flute. I loved the instrument's smooth silver sheen, identifying the place for each of my fingers to go, controlling the sound of the flute by finding the absolute great spot on my lips to blow, making this piece of shiny metal come to life. Ain't I a woman? The best reason to go to orchestra class was to lay eyes on Derek. His quick smile, his gorgeous smooth skin. I melted every time he looked at me with those deep-set liquid eyes. The flute and the trumpet, making beautiful, blissful music together. I would watch him play the trumpet and just melt with bliss. Ain't I a woman? Well, in reality, I was a young white girl of immigrant parents, living in a quiet neighborhood in LA, learning the sinister stories of our country, reveling in a Shero who thoroughly lived her life for good, battling unimaginable struggles and unknown terrors. Sojourner Truth lifted me into womanhood. She persevered. She persisted. She changed the world, and because of her, I was given permission to have my first teenage crush on a black angel who played the trumpet. Ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
How many survivors are alive today, having survived so many generations because of one strong, determined woman, a rescuer of souls so many years ago?
My father.
My sister Nancy.
Audie Murphy.
My professor, Pam Schmonsky.
John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Today's whistleblowers.
Arlene Raven.
Andrea Jenkins.
My brother Jim.
Michael Kearns.
Who are your heroes?
Thelma.
Rosemary Duffield.
That's it?
Any other names? Anyone want to shout one out?
James Baldwin.
Jonas Saul. My parents. Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. Single mother.
W.H.
Let's
Auden.
hear it for the mothers.
Ken.
Auden.
Yeah.
Michael?
All of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, no.
Lovely. Ain't I a woman? Now, please. I baked carrot cake and lemon poppy seed and a chocolate cake at 6 o'clock this morning. Don't film. Eat them and enjoy. In 5